Joining the Loudr Lawyer Network, the podcast where we sit down with the law firm owners, attorneys, and visionaries that are making the most noise in the legal landscape nationwide to find out the secrets to their success. Other podcasts think they're getting loud, but we're getting louder. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Loudr Lawyer Network, where we help attorneys scale to million-dollar months through powerful strategies and connections. And my connection today is none other than Don Foty. Don Foty, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, sir?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
Hey, man. Thanks for being here. So what I like to do, I like to kind of find out those moments. You know, we all have those moments in life. Take me back before you ever decided to become a lawyer. What led you to become a lawyer? Take me through those steps.
Yeah, so I mean, I really started considering law school when I was in college. I went to the University of Texas at Austin. I studied finance at the University of Texas. And then obviously when a person is in college, the question becomes, what are they going to do after they graduate? And the normal path is you either try to find a job after you graduate or you go on to graduate school. And I think my mom was actually the one who put a lot of pressure on me to go to law school. So I have an older sister. She was in medical school at the time. And so my mom was like, hey, I need a doctor and a lawyer in the family. So why don't you go to law school?
Good old mom.
So, and then I started looking into it. And, having a law degree opens up a lot of doors to you. You don't have to have a traditional path of being a courtroom lawyer. There's lots of other opportunities that can be presented to you if you have a law degree. You can actually go work in more of a traditional business setting. But having a law degree, gives you an education that provides a good foundation for how the American legal system works, how the government system works, and really opens up your eyes to how decisions are made, sort of from a policy level, at the policy level scope.
So you're in school and you decide I'm going to get my degree. Mom's helped get you to that point of view. What specifically led you to get into the personal injury space? I know that you also, with your firm, with the Foty law firm.
So my firm handles personal injury cases, significant personal injury cases, but we also primarily what we focus on is representing workers in unpaid wage, class action lawsuits, and collective action lawsuits. And that's primarily what my firm focuses on right now. So, but, I was in law school, and I think, the path that I took was when I was in law school as a law student, I got a clerkship with a law firm that was a young startup law firm, and that was handling mostly personal injury cases. And that was a law firm that I started with after I graduated from law school. So as a young lawyer, I was working on personal injury cases that ranged from small car accident cases, slip and fall cases, to large serious injury cases, medical malpractice cases, workplace explosion cases, ones that involved serious injuries. And while I was handling those cases, I started looking at the pay records that some of my injured clients would present to us. Because in any personal injury case, there's where a person is seriously injured and can't work, there's typically a lost wage component of that claim. And so you have to estimate, okay, what was the person making before they were injured, and what is their ability to work, and what have they lost now that they're injured and can't work. And so I started reviewing these pay records, and then I realized, hey, well, looking at these pay records, not only did the, employer potentially cause this, workplace accident and is at fault for the injuries, they also were stiffing this worker on the amount of wages he's owed. And so I started looking into more and more about representing workers in unpaid wage claims. And that's what's progressed since then. And so I've been doing that for about 20 years now. And typically these cases are large class actions or collective actions brought against some of the largest employers in the country for, misclassifying their workers as exempt from overtime, not paying for their workers for certain work activities, classifying an entire workforce as independent contractors when they really should be employees. There's a whole host of potential unpaid wage claims where employers are making mistakes in their payroll and pay practice decisions.
Wow. So you kind of hit the twofold system there in the same breath. So when someone comes to you, not only if they're injured in a car accident, but a lot of car accidents lead. I was just recently in an accident, and I had to take leave away, and not being able to have, you know, the ways to go about and work and stuff, taking that time out to get the body and stuff better. A lot of employers can take advantage of that aspect, and you worry about job security. You know, is your job going to be there? So that's a very interesting take on that. I've had different attorneys come on here, and that never have I found an attorney that also puts that into. That's thinking, that's forward thinking, thinking ahead.
Yeah, so it's a little bit, you know, the wage laws are you know, I would say as complicated as think of like the tax code. So you've got all these exceptions within exceptions. You've got and the tax code changes all the time. Well, it's kind of like that with the wage laws. So there's a statute, there's a law on the books called the Fair Labor Standards Act, and that's the federal law that governs the payment of wages to workers. It sets the minimum wage in the country. It also sets the work week at 40 hours and says it says employers have to pay time and a half if a worker works more than 40 hours. And then what you also have is a series of administrative regulations that interpret the Fair Labor Standards Act. So you have the Department of Labor that then comes in and can actually provide definitions to certain provisions in the Fair Labor Standards Act and issue their own opinions as to what the Fair Labor Standards Act means. And then on top of that, you have certain states that have enacted their own version of the Fair Labor Standards Act that have their own wage and hour laws. And so employers have to navigate both the federal law, the administrative regulations, and the state laws when they come up with their pay practices. And a lot of times employers get it wrong, and workers could be deprived of wages, and those wages can be significant. And, you know, if it's complicated for employers and it's complicated for lawyers, you know, a lot of, you know, hourly paid workers who are living paycheck to paycheck, who just want to support their families, they may not even know that they're being taken advantage of. And these major corporations have lawyers that defend them and provide advice to them. Well, workers need lawyers too, and workers need lawyers who are going to provide advice to them and look out for them. And so, you know, what my firm does is we represent workers all across the country in reviewing how they're paid, what's listed on their pay records, is the calculation correctly, are there activities that they're not paid for, is there any potential unpaid wages that they could be owed. And we investigate and we help workers all across the country. And I think we've represented to date close to 100,000 workers all across the country.
Wow, that's an impressive resume right there, man. Very nice. I also saw that with your law firm, you have, correct me if I'm wrong, you have like over 40 years experience with your team, right? In practicing law. But I also saw that none of you guys have ever been on the defense side. It's always been about the plaintiff. And that's
what we do now. Like we don't represent companies. We only represent workers. Some of the attorneys at the firm have represented companies in the past, but now that they work for my firm, they are exclusively representing workers. I mean, that's what we do. You know, we're here to help workers. We're here to provide them advice. And if it's believed in good faith that, hey, look, they're owed more money, we'll pursue that claim and we'll pursue it vigorously.
Yeah, I see that you have you've represented a number of, you've taken on the big dogs and have been victorious. Tell me, how does that feeling, does it take a whole team? Have you had to go in there and go to trial, or are these settlement cases? Tell me how.
Well, it's a combination of both. It's a combination of both. We've taken cases to trial and we've won. We've taken cases and litigated them and then got them to settle. We've also taken cases all the way up to the Supreme Court of certain states. So, you know, we recently beat Amazon 7-0 before the Nevada Supreme Court, and then you
took on Amazon.
Yeah, and then we beat Amazon again before the Illinois Supreme Court in a 6-0 decision. So in both cases, decided whether under the laws of those states, whether certain pre-shift work and post-shift work has to be paid for by Amazon. And so that was the issue. And so those are the types of complicated legal issues that we will represent workers in. And if need be, we'll take them all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Wow. That's no frills there. You go straight for the jugular. I like that. In your situation with your firm, practicing personal injury and would it be workers' comp or employment?
No, it's not workers' compensation. So call it wage and hour. Wage
Wage.
and hour. Yep.
So that's a specialty. That's a
That's a
specialty.
specialty. Wage and hour. Yep. It's a subspecialty of employment law.
Wow, I've never heard of that before. That's interesting. So in your practice, how do people know where to find you? How do they know? Is your lead thing workers wage and hour, or is it personal injury?
Yeah, most of the cases we get are wage and hour cases. So I would say this: there's, if you do good work and you develop a reputation for being a good attorney in a particular field, other lawyers find out about that. And so most of our cases come through referrals. Other lawyers may come across, sort of a similar situation. They could be a lawyer who's reviewing pay records for their clients and say, hey, this may be an issue. Let me send it to Don. Don and his firm specialize in this. Let me have them take a look at this. Or it could be a situation where, a worker contacts another attorney and says, hey, this is happening at my work. I got questions about it. And they say, well, contact Don. Don and his firm, they specialize in representing workers. So a lot of times it's through referrals that we get our cases.
Wow, that's interesting. So the personal injury side doesn't really take a precedence over your company. Your
my firm primarily specializes in representing the workers in the wage and hour class actions and collective actions. So, my background is in, I started off my career doing personal injury. So if there's a serious injury case, yeah, my firm will handle it. But on a day-to-day basis, our focus is representing workers.
Oh, that's very interesting. What have you found being the difference between being a personal injury attorney and then the workers, the
wage and hour cases?
Is it the wage and hours? Is there injury sometime in that? Like mentally,
no, there's no personal injuries in those, other than it's a claim for, hey, I'm owed money, you owe me the money, I should have been paid X dollars for wages, you haven't paid me that. It's a lawsuit to get those wages.
Have you ever had anyone that's been for standing on that purpose, being fired for their job or let go? Do you run into those situations?
So making a claim for unpaid wages under the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is the federal law, it's protected. So kind of like an employer can't fire you because of your race or your sex or your gender or your religion. They can't fire a worker for making a claim or asking questions. Hey, should I be paid more? Should I be paid overtime when I work more than 40 hours? That's a protected activity. And so if that happens, that gives rise to what's called a retaliation claim. And in a retaliation claim, the employee can argue, I engaged in protected activity, I brought a claim for unpaid wages, and my employer then retaliated against me in this way, and I'm entitled to additional money because of the retaliation.
So when you go in and represent, is it individuals or is it a group of people?
So typically what we do is we bring them as class actions. It starts off with either one individual or a handful of individuals. And then during the lawsuit, we gather evidence about the case, and then we present what's called a motion for class certification to the judge. And we say, here's the evidence that we acquired during discovery. Here's the report from our expert saying, this is the policy at issue. This is how it affected all other workers as well, not just the original plaintiffs. And then we explain to the judge, this is why the court should treat this case as a class action. And if the court agrees with us, then the case goes from involving just a handful of plaintiffs to now representing all the other workers who were similarly situated to those plaintiffs, to the original plaintiffs. And so the case could go from, one or two plaintiffs to 10,000 plaintiffs. It could go from one or two plaintiffs to 100,000 plaintiffs. Just depends on the case, just depends on the number of workers, depends on the company, and depends on the evidence that exists.
I saw in your some of the things you like to talk about. Where do you see the future of workplace rights going for individuals?
Yeah, I
in
think
remote
there's going to
work?
be. Yeah, I think workers. Unfortunately, I think that if the minimum wage was set at $1 an hour, there would be companies that would try to pay 90 cents an hour. We're always trying to cut corners and cut their labor costs. So I think these claims are always going to exist, and I think workers need attorneys to help them, to represent them, and to pursue claims on their behalf when they're not being paid the wages that they're owed. I mean, ultimately, workers just want a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. I mean, that's ultimately what we all want. Hey, if we work hard for a company, pay us the wages we're owed. Okay, that's really ultimately what these cases are about. It's, hey, the law says that these workers are entitled to X wages. You did not, employer Y, you did not comply with that. This is a case where you can make it right. This is the case where we're asking for those wages. Change your practice. Pay these workers what they're owed.
Switching gears on that, do you take that same approach into where, because you seem like you're very like straight laced on that. No, just bottom line. Where do you stand when it comes to individuals that with the personal injury on what's happened to them with insurance companies and things of that nature? And what is the biggest myth about personal injury attorneys that needs to go away?
So, yeah, I mean, I think the same approach can be applied to, personal injury cases. I mean, you have a person who is harmed by the actions of another person, and the whole point of a personal injury case is to get justice and get that person compensated for their injuries. I mean, people who are victims of personal injury deserve representation, and they deserve somebody to fight for them. It deserves somebody to really try to seek justice for what happened. I mean, you could have cases where an 18-wheeler driver, violates company policies and causes serious accidents. You could have a case where a hospital and its nursing staff violate their policies and seriously injure someone. Well, the person who is injured needs justice, and in this country, the justice is through the court system. So attorneys need to be there to zealously represent these people and make sure that justice is served.
Yes, the reason I asked you about personal injury, I see that you have a number of major cases that involved children and malpractice at birth. And that's why I asked you about that aspect of it, because you've had some landslide victories in that. Can you talk about that a little bit without disclosing?
Yeah, so I've unfortunately, children are vulnerable, and I've represented some children in the past who've had some serious injuries happen to them. I had a case early on in my career where little girl went to daycare, and mother drops this little girl. She's about 3, 4 years old, off at daycare. Mother picks her up. She's screaming in pain. She asked the person at the daycare what happened. She says, "I don't know what happened." She fell. And then the mother takes her daughter to the hospital, and she had both of her arms broken and her leg broken. Now, that doesn't happen by simply falling. Okay. So there was some serious, what I believe, gross negligence that happens. We brought a lawsuit against the daycare and the person in charge of the daycare. And I can say we got a very good verdict after a trial on that case. I've represented children who've had serious birth injuries, who they were healthy. They were healthy babies before they went to the hospital. And then after they left the hospital, they have serious birth injuries. And we go after and we make sure that, hey, that the hospital staff, they make amends, that justice be served for them as well.
Yeah, and the reason I asked you about that, Don, is because it seems like you take a human approach to everything that you're doing. And like you said, there's no difference between someone that is injured by no fault of their own, whether it be a car accident or a malpractice, and the same side in terms of people working really hard. I like to call them the middlemen, the people that are the gears that make companies run. We know a company like Amazon, for example, there's many different factors, from delivery to people packing to all of those
Yep.
things that happen there that are, you have the top brass sitting up there, one of the richest people in the world, and you know, and people being neglected, so the fact that you are standing out there as the front person, being a champion for them speaks volumes.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you're going to be a lawyer, you got to be passionate about what you do, and if you're not out there trying to help people, you shouldn't be in this profession.
Yeah. When you look for people that come and work with you, what type of partner, or how do you go about picking the staff that's going to work with you?
Yeah, I mean, we want people
do?
who are going to work hard. I think in any profession, one of the most important traits that's going to indicate success is whether you're a hard worker. Because you can have two really smart people, but if one person is lazy and the other person's a hard worker, doesn't matter that they're both smart. The hard worker is always going to do better. So we look for people who can work, who are going to work hard, work for people who are dedicated, who really care about trying to help others. We want people who are going to take this seriously, because they're working on serious cases, and they're working on cases that really do impact the lives of others. I mean, if we have a case and we take it all the way up to the Supreme Court of a state, the Supreme Court's going to decide what the law is in this state or how the law should be applied. Well, that decision is going to affect hundreds of thousands to millions of workers. Okay, so the cases we take on are big cases, are serious cases, and they really do matter, and they do affect the outcome of others. So I want people who are going to take their job seriously, be passionate about it, work hard, and be smart. That's what we look for.
Work hard and be smart. Being in the state of, you're in Texas, right?
Yeah, we're in Texas.
You're in Texas. What part of Texas are you at?
Houston.
You're in Houston, so that's one of the bigger cities in the state of Texas, and there's a lot of car accidents, a lot of trucking accidents, like just a ton of things happening. What percentage of your firm handles those with your reputation, handles those personal injuries versus the wages? Is there a way you're looking to build up that aspect of it too, since you do represent people on all the levels?
Yeah, so you're right. In Houston, we don't have the best public transportation, and we've got a big highway system, and we've got roads that lots of roads throughout the city, and some people have described Houston as a big concrete jungle. So yeah, there's people driving on the roads every day, and when you have a lot of people driving on the roads, you're gonna have a lot of car accidents. It's just
right.
it's just the odds of it, right? And you're right. There's lots of car accidents, and there's lots of car accident lawyers in Houston, and they take on those cases every day. Those are important cases, and people involved in car accidents need representation, and they need help. That's just not something, in terms of what my firm does, that's not a big portion of what my firm does. What my firm does really is representing primarily, the vast majority is representing the workers in the wage and hour claims.
Okay. So the wage and hour clients, that outweighs your personal injury side.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's the.
Are you looking to neglect? I mean, not neglect, but put personal injury all the way aside, or would you like to build that aspect of the business too?
We haven't put it aside. We're just very selective with the cases that we take on.
Right.
So if it's
like
not
on an average, how many personal injury cases do you handle a month, do you think?
I mean, right now my firm is only handling, I would say, maybe 5 personal injury cases, just because those are very serious cases that are involved, very serious injuries. But if it's not a serious injury case, yeah, my firm's not going to take it on.
So you're looking at, if you represented, you'd want to see more serious cases that are worth your firm's time, because a lot of the attention is put on the specialty of your business.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's only 24 hours in a day, so you have a limited amount of time. And when you have a lot of people who are coming to you who need help, sometimes you have to be selective. And so, like any business, so we have the practice, our wage practices is very busy. And so, what that means is we have to focus our time on these wage cases and less time on, let's say, a car accident case. But if there's a serious personal injury case, my firm will dedicate the time and resources to helping that person.
I'm sitting here looking at you speak, and I'm like, because I was like trying to find, I like to research about everybody that I talk to and stuff. And I'm sorry I didn't see the when I was talking to you earlier. I just saw the LinkedIn, and maybe it's just the snapshot that came through. But I was like trying to find like the bottom line. But man, what you do is so unique and special that you're one of those guys that need to be up front and center and talking about that. People need to see the story of who you are and, what your values are, because I think you have a lot to say that goes beyond the scope of just being an attorney, just being a human being. And I think that story, you have a good presence, needs to be told.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think people should tell stories about unique things that happen to them. I mean, if you've got a unique story, let people know about it. That can inspire other people.
Yeah,
And so if I can help somebody else or inspire somebody else, I'm all for that.
Yeah, your story, we got to talk about that. Your story needs to be told, man. Definitely. It definitely does. Knowing what you know now, you said you started your career out in personal injury. You took on a lot of personal injury cases. You worked in that field, and then you saw the need, the niche that you've specialized in now. If you were to talk to an attorney, a young attorney comes in today, or the younger version of yourself, what would you say to them, knowing everything you know now? What would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that I do focus on wage and hour work, I do think that's important. I think there are areas of the law where people need help that are underserved. I mean, there are lots of personal injury lawyers in Houston. There are lots of car accident lawyers in Houston. I mean, if a person, gets involved in a car accident and they do a Google search, top personal injury lawyer, top car wreck lawyer in Houston.
Right.
I mean, the computer is going to be inundated with a bunch
Right.
of ads from personal injury lawyers. I mean,
Right.
they're out there, right? They're frankly a dime a dozen.
Oh, they're nationwide.
Nationwide. I mean, you're gonna find one.
Nationwide.
You're not gonna have a problem finding one, right?
Billboards
So,
everywhere.
but there are areas of the law that are underserved, and there are areas of the law where violations happen, and people do need help. And I think a young lawyer should go into those areas of the law that are being underserved to help people, not go into an area of the law where, hey, I'm just going to be one other attorney amongst 1,000 other lawyers doing this practice area, and then I got to get the scraps that somebody else doesn't want, or I got to go out there. No, go into an area that's being underserved. Go into an area of the law where you can actually help people, where there's a need for it. I think that's important.
No, that's very important, man. I like what you said, and that what you just said right there. I'm picturing your face right here. What you just said right now, that needs to be up front and center so people can find you, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't know that you're out there. And I think, like anything, those type of stories, your story needs to be out there so people can see you. You're compassionate about what you do, and I think that you have some type of digital, in this day and time, some type of digital presence there, so people know that you are. That has to be there. And I think what you have to say is engaging, and there are people out there that want to help engage your story. So.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when you're a lawyer, the old title used to be lawyer and counselor at law, right? Because you were supposed to counsel and advise people and help them. I mean, we got to get back to advising and helping people, right? I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And with that said, when you hear the term Loudr Lawyer, what does Loudr Lawyer mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, when I hear that, the first thought that comes to my mind is a lawyer who's passionate about what he does. It's a person who really cares about being a lawyer. It's a person who really cares about his job. It's a person who cares about helping his clients. So when sometimes you're louder, you're more passionate, you're more dedicated to your craft.
No, absolutely. And here at Loudr Lawyer, at Loudr Media, we say a Loudr Lawyer. You are an example of what a Loudr Lawyer is, and I think with where you stand, being in the specialty with wage and hour, right? Wage and hour. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's it.
The wage and hour thing. I think it'd be important to get in there with some of those families that you represent, and you bring money back to them, being involved in the community, in those certain communities, sponsoring a little league team or a charity and things of that nature, that just speaks with your actions, not even be saying anything, but just really standing 10 toes down on the ground with that, you know?
Yeah, definitely. No, getting out to the community, showing them who you are, showing them that they have a resource, that's important.
You know, absolutely. So how do people find you that are in that stuff? You drop your digits and whatever
Yeah, so they
information
can
you got.
go to my website. That's the easiest way to find me. It's www.fotylawgroup.com. So fotylawgroup.com. And that's my firm's website. Foty is spelled, you can see it, kind of on the screen. It's Foty. So people can find me. They can call us. The office number is 713-523-0001. And if anyone has questions about, their experiences at work, what's going on with their employer, they can't make sense of their pay records, they can call us and we can see if we can help them out.
Oh, that's really good, man. That's really good. Thank you so much, Don, for being a guest here at Loudr Lawyer Network. You put the louder in what we do.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you for being on.
Thanks for being a part of the Loudr Lawyer Network. If you're enjoying the conversation, let us know. Give us a like and subscribe to never miss a thing. We'll see you next time right here on the Loudr Lawyer Network.